heredity and evolution. So here this heredity and evolution, it is linked up with the previous lesson where we have learnt about the sexual reproduction in organisms and asexual reproduction. So in that reproduction, we learnt about the reason for evolution. So evolution is a gradual process which made the diversity possible on this planet. How many species are there? So there are thousands and thousands and thousands, millions of species are there on this planet. The scientists, they haven't yet identified the whole number of species, whole varieties of species that are present on this planet. Still they are finding some new species every day. So how this much of diversity has come onto this planet? And moreover, we learned one more thing in the reproduction. The traits or the characters are passed from generation to generation. And we learned that when there is reproduction, the young ones that are born are identical to the parent. They are similar to the parent, but they are not exactly identical. Young ones are similar to the parent, but they are not exactly identical. They have some changes. We call them as variations. So here, what is the link to these variations, to this heredity and evolution? This lesson tells us these variations, that means the changes that are happened during the copying of DNA, during the process of reproduction, these changes, they are inherited from generation to generation. This is called as heredity. So these variations and the heredity, they help in the process of evolution. This is what we are going to learn in this chapter, heredity and evolution. So variations takes place in each generation, from generation to generation. But there is some difference. If you see the asexual reproduction, asexual reproduction, the variations are less. If it is sexual reproduction, that means if the organism reproduces by sexual means, there is more chance for variation because two DNAs, mother DNA, father DNA, recombine to form a new DNA. So there are more chances, that means more variations. More variations in case of sexual reproduction, less variations in case of asexual reproduction. But whatever may be the case, asexual or sexual variations are there in each generation, one progeny to another progeny. So now let us see how these variations lead to that concept of evolution. Let us see now. So let us see, already we discussed in the previous lesson about the variations. The variations sometimes may be advantageous. It doesn't mean that all variations are advantageous. So variations takes place, sometimes they become advantageous. Say, here we can take an example, there is a bacteria. So this bacteria, it lives at a temperature of 20 degrees, it can withstand up to 20 degrees. So some variation happened in this bacteria, in this population. So in the progenies, in the next generations, some bacteria are still able to withstand only 20, but in some bacteria, in the same species, the generations, in the next coming up generations, in one of the generation, there is a variation that the bacteria can withstand 30 degrees or 40 degrees. So this is a variant. Both are of same species. But while copying of DNA, some errors might have occurred, and which led to a variation in which this bacteria is able to withstand a temperature of 40 degrees or more. And other members, those who do not have that variations, they can withstand only up to 20 degrees Celsius. So if the environmental conditions change to high temperature, so the environment now it is having more than 30 degrees, 40 degrees Celsius, the temperature in the environment is changed. Now this variation, that is increasing the withstanding capacity of heat. So that variation, it becomes advantageous for this organism. So there may be natural changes in the environment. The organisms which have variations that help them to adapt in that particular changed environment, such cases you can say it is advantageous. Basically this is called as natural selection. So we see every day many species are becoming extinct, but some species are surviving. It is because of the variations fetching them. So the organisms that have the variations that fetch them, that help them to live in the changing environmental conditions, so such cases the variations are advantageous. So here we are learning mechanisms by which variations are inherited. Variations are inherited. By what mechanisms the variations are inherited? To understand that, we need to know the rules of heredity. So rules of heredity, what are these rules? Who found these rules? So there was a person called Gregor John Mendel. He conducted experiments on the organisms, how these variations are inherited. So to understand or to see how the variations are inherited, you need to observe number of generations. If you take any organism as your case study example, as your specimen example, if you wanted to study how the variations are inherited in humans, for your study you need to see some 10 generations, but it is not possible in your lifetime. You cannot see 10 generations in your sample study organism. So Mendel, he wanted to study the changes that happen in generation to generation. So he selected a plant which is having a very little lifespan, so by that he can observe its progenies, number of generations, how the traits are inherited. So for that reason he selected a pea plant which is having some contrast characters. That means the characters that can be seen to the naked eye. For that reason he selected pea plants. He conducted experiments on pea plants. And if we study the observations of Gregor John Mendel, we can understand how the characters, how the variations are inherited from generation to generation and how they leads to that evolution. So that part, again, the contribution of another scientist, Charles Darwin. So he made certain observations. We'll study in the second part of this lesson, that will tell us about the process of evolution. Here we will understand how the traits are inherited and what are the rules of the heredity, that we can understand here. Let us see. So here Gregor John Mendel, 1822 to 1884, he conducted experiments on pea plants. He observed a number of generations and he understood the rules, how the variations are inherited. So before we look into the work of Gregor John Mendel, first let us understand the basics of the traits, the variations or traits, the characters, how they are passed from generation to generation. See, we already discussed that every person, every organism is having two sets of chromosomes, two sets of genes that represent each character. So each trait is expressed by a gene that is a part of a DNA. See, in man, in his cell, he is having a pair of genes responsible for one character. Say for example length, that means height of the person. See, he is the father or the male. Height, he is having height. So he is having good height, that is some 6 feet height. I have written as a capital H. He is having good height. His height is determined by two genes, pair. The second one is, the second factor also determines the height, but it is small h, means short. But how one character is expressed out? Father is tall. Father is tall. Okay, better we take capital T for tall. So the tallness is controlled by two genes. The second gene is small t, means short. So a person is having two genes. One is telling you to grow tall, one is telling you to grow short. But only one is expressed out. He is tall. Means this is expressed out, it is there. He is having one more gene which tells that your height should be short, but it is recessive. The other gene is dominant, so that is why it is expressed out. For every character, a pair of genes are controlling. Even here, you see the mother, she is short. The height determining genes in her body both are small t. Both genes are telling that short. So she is short here. So here, now there is reproduction by these two parents. So in sexual reproduction, they contribute their genes. Here the male contribute one set of genes in the germ cells, reproductive cells, not two sets of genes. So he has given this set of gene here. This set of genes. Father contributed this set of genes. It is small t. Okay, better we take this. Here the father contributed this set of genes, which is big T. And mother contributed this set of genes. Anyway, in both the cases, she is having small t. So, here the boy, how he will be? Tall or short? Here, he has got a set of genes. In that set, one gene is determining the height. Here, what he acquired from the mother, in that set, the gene that determining the height is short. From the father, the set of genes that he acquired, the set of genes in that the gene determining the height is tall. So in this case, the boy is tall because this tall is a dominant character. Of course, the boy is having the gene which can make short also, but that gene is suppressed. The trait is suppressed by the tall because tall is a dominant trait. So here we can understand one concept that every character, every trait is controlled by two genes in every organism. So if you understand this, we can understand the experiments conducted by Gregor John Mendel. That is the reason you might be wondered. So your father may be in fair complexion or dark complexion, your mother may be fair complexion. So you will get one. You may be very dark complexion you may get. That means you may acquire the character trait from your father. You may be very fair as like your mother. So you may acquire that fairness character trait from your mother. So the traits, they are expressed by a set of genes. So now let us see the experiments conducted by Gregor John Mendel. So now let us see the experiment that was conducted by Gregor John Mendel. Here we can see two generations, progeny 1, progeny 2, F1, F2 we can see here. So already I told you that why he has selected pea plants, because there are some characters which are visible to outside, which we can observe generation to generation, what changes happened, how the characters are inherited, we can observe it. So such characters are contrasting characters. What are those? Tallness and shortness. Pea plants, they have contrast characters. Some pea plants are tall, some are short. Some pea plants have round seeds, some have wrinkled seeds. Some pea plants have green seeds, some have yellow seeds. Some have white flowers, some have violet flowers. So these many variations are there in pea plants. That is the reason why he has selected the pea plants for his experiment. So here this experiment is based on the height of the pea plant, tall. So he selected a pea plant with tall and short, two pea plants. So these two pea plants are cross pollinated. The tall pea plant, it is having capital T, means I told you before this, I told you that every character, every trait is expressed by two genes. One is dominant, one is recessive. So in this case, in the tall plant, both the genes are expressing tallness, TT. Both the genes are expressing the same character, tallness. Whereas the other plant, it has got two genes, pair of genes for the character small t. So that is why it is short. So if cross pollination takes place between this and this, the seeds that are obtained from these plants are planted. So in the first progeny, what is observed here? All the plants are tall, but for outside, just to look outside, all are tall. But let us see the ratio. Let us see their genes, whether both the genes are expressing tallness or not. No. One gene is expressing the tall trait, the other one is expressing the short. But the plant looks tall because the tall is the dominant character. The second case also capital T, small t. Third case also capital T, small t. Fourth case also capital T, small t. All the four plants, they have both the genes. The gene which is expressing tallness, which is expressing shortness. But outside only one thing is seen. A plant can never be short and tall at a time. It can either be short or tall. Here it is only tall because it is the dominant character. So now, here again F1 plant and F1 plant are crossbred for the second progeny. F1 into F1. How is that F1? Here this is the F1. In F1, two genes, one is capital T, the other one is small t. One is expressing tallness, the other one is expressing shortness. Here tallness and shortness. So now these are crossbred. So what is the result here? Out of this we got 1/4 short and 3/4 tall. 3/4 plants are tall. 1/4 is short. Out of 4, 1 is short. So the short plant has got small t. Both the characters are short. That is why it is short. In the other case, 50%. Out of 4, 2 are one capital T, one small t. Means one dominant character as well as it is carrying the recessive character also. Shortness expression gene is also there. Only one, it is having both the dominant characters TT. So in the second generation, 25% is having completely dominant, 25% is having completely recessive traits, and the 50% is having mixed, one dominant and one recessive gene. But to look outside, all the three are tall, one is short. So this is how the inheritance of variations takes place. So Mendel conducted some more experiments. In this case, he considered only one contrasting character, tall or short. In the next experiment, he has taken two different contrast characters. He considered tallness, shortness, at the same time their seeds. One plant with round seeds, one plant with wrinkle seeds. Likewise, in a combination of different contrast characters he has taken for the further experiment to understand better how these traits are inherited. Let us see. Now, let us see the rules of inheritance by taking two contrast characters. Earlier we have seen that only one contrast character, that is either short or tall plant, short plant. Here two. What is that? Here we are considering the color and shape of seeds of pea plant. So here in the initially, the seeds are taken like the seeds which are round. The roundness is determined by both the genes capital R, and green, it is determined by small y. On the other side, we have taken a seed which is wrinkled and yellow. The wrinkleness is shown by small r, yellow is shown by capital Y, capital Y. The first one is round green. Both are crossbred. Here in the first generation F1 progeny, you got capital R, small r, means this is the dominant character. So you got it as round, capital Y, small y. The capital Y, it denotes that yellow. So round and yellow. Round and yellow seed you got in the F1 progeny, first generation. Now you have taken two same kind of first generation seeds and cross-pollinated, fertilized, crossbred. Crossbreeding has taken place between the F1 and F1. So in this case, the result is we get 315 round yellow seeds, 108 round green seeds, 101 wrinkle yellow seeds, 32 wrinkle green seeds. The ratio is 9:3:3:1. What does it shows? So the characters are independently inherited. It doesn't mean that the round and green, roundness and greenness both are not linked. So the characters, the traits are independently inherited. See here, the different combinations he got. Actually, he has taken round green, wrinkle yellow, but he got round yellow, round green, wrinkle yellow, wrinkle green. So this is the different combinations takes place because the traits are inherited individually. And the one more important thing is that each and every trait is represented by two genes. Now let us see how the traits get expressed. So each trait is controlled by two genes. So what is a gene? Gene is a part of DNA. DNA is the genetic material. So where is this DNA present? It is present in the nucleus. So the DNA, it consists of two genes for each character. See, we already know that we share the DNA from two different organisms, father and mother. So when you are sharing, you see that if the two genes that are controlling a single character are on the same DNA strand, say for example, these are the two genes which are controlling the height. So here the parent is having two sets of chromosomes, two sets. One set is passed in the sexual reproduction. If the genes that controlling a character, if both the genes are on the same strand, if this strand is not passed, this strand is passed, then what happens? There are no genes which can which can decide the height. Will it happen? No. See, the DNA will have two strands. But when the cell is about to divide, the DNA changes into chromosomes. So the genes, they become into two sets separate. Chromosomes become into two separate sets. So a character is expressed by two genes, but both the genes will not stay on the same strand. Even though a character is expressed by two genes, both the genes are not on the same strand of the DNA, or both the genes are not found in the same chromosome. So one in one chromosome, one in one chromosome. Then only it is possible for the individual inheritance of the characters, otherwise it is not possible. Okay. Now let us see how it is executed. The changes are executed. Say for example, here a character is inherited. What is that character? Tall. The boy should grow tall. So genes, they have carried the variation, carried the trait to the boy. Now the boy has to grow. How this is executed? The tallness is there in his genes. The instruction is there in his genes, he should grow tall. How it is executed? Let us see. The instruction is there in the gene of the boy that he should grow tall. Now this tallness, whatever the gene is there, that gene, by using the cell apparatus, by using the cellular apparatus, mitochondria, cytoplasm, Golgi complex, especially the Golgi complex and all, it prepares a protein that is nothing but enzyme. So what enzyme it prepares? When it prepares? When the gene is having tall, it prepares more enzyme. So the DNA contains a gene which is responsible for the tallness of the boy. That gene, it produces more enzyme. What does this more enzyme does? It produces more hormone. It is responsible for the production of more hormone. The more hormone is responsible for more growth. The boy grows tall, 6 feet, 6.2, 6.4 tall. Why some boys are growing tall? Because their gene is producing more protein, which turns into more enzyme, which converts more hormone, which prepares more hormone in the body, growth hormone. More growth hormone results in more growth. Say for example, the boy is having a gene which determines the height as short. So that gene, it will make less protein, less enzyme. So less hormone, so less growth. This is how the genes are linked to the final execution. So the genes will get the program. The DNA will have that complete program. DNA is nothing but the set of genes. So many traits are there, so many characters are there. So we have so many characters. Of course, all the characters are not seen externally. See here, we find some kind of differences and similarities between your friends. You might be observing in your classroom. If you compare with your friends there, you will find some differences in the skin complexion, in the hair color, in the pupil color, in the nose pattern, and in your ear endings, ear lobes, some are attached, some are free. So that height differences, even though they are of same age, your age is 15, their age is 15, even though they are taller than you, they may be shorter than you. So likewise, you find so many differences. At the same time, you find some similarities. They will be having 2 eyes, you have 2 eyes, they have 10 fingers, you have 10 fingers, they have 10 toes, you have 10 toes, 2 legs, likewise similarities, differences. All this happens because of the genes they acquire from their parents. But every character, every trait is expressed by 2 genes. That is what we have to learn here. And here, how it is expressed there? So why some people are dark? So again the gene. The gene, it prepares a substance called melanin. If the gene is preparing more melanin leads to darkness of the skin. If the gene is preparing the proteins which will produce less melanin. So less protein is prepared by the gene, less melanin means fair skin. So people, if they have less melanin or no melanin, they have very fair skin. Melanin content is less. If melanin content is more, they have darker complexion. So the darkness or fairness is decided by what? By the amount of substance, melanin. Who decides the substance of melanin? It should be high or low. It is decided by some enzyme. Who will decide that the enzyme should be produced more or less? It is decided by your genes. So gene is the final one who decide how much amount of substances and hormones are to be produced. Depending upon the amount of hormones produced, the changes takes place in our body. So the characters are expressed, the traits are expressed out because of this connection between gene to enzyme to hormone to final execution or expression. So this is the connection. So now let us see the another concept, sex determination. So here we are discussing that each and every trait is expressed by 2 genes. So there is a trait, the newborn young one, whether it will be a male or female, what decides it? how it is determined, how it is decided whether the born baby is male, is going to be a male or a female. So that is called as sex determination. In animals, in lower forms, in some of the organisms, the sex determination is based on environmental factors. Various environmental conditions decide whether the newborn baby will be a male or a female. In some cases, the temperature decides. Many animals, they lay the eggs. The temperature at which the eggs are hatched decides whether the born baby will be a male or female. So here temperature is also, we can consider it as an environmental factor. So in case of these eggs hatching, the variations in temperature can bring about change in the sex of the organism. So here it is temperature linked. And in some organisms, you see, like snails, they can change the sex, male to female. So these are all in the lower forms. Let us talk about the humans, how the sex is determined in humans. In humans, the sex determination takes place purely by genes, depending upon the genes acquired by both mother and father. As we have discussed earlier, father, mother, they have two sets of genes, two sets of chromosomes, and during sexual reproduction they share one set. Here two sets are there, 2n, 2n, 1n is given here, 1n is given here, 1n plus 1n, 2n. The young one will have two sets again. Here, in case of father's body, the reproductive cell of male, it will have two genes that determine the sex, X and Y. In mother, both are X. So the character of female is represented by both X in mother. In father, X, Y. This is one set, this is one set, this is one set, this is one set. But we know that they cannot contribute two sets, only one set they have to contribute. So in this one set, if mother contributes X, father contributes Y, it will be a boy, YX combination or XY combination, right? So that means YX. If father contributes X, mother contributes X, it is XX girl. So it is in the hand of the father whether the born baby will be a boy or a girl, determined only by the father here. So from the father genes, if X gene is given to combine with the other gene from the mother, it will be a girl. If Y gene is given, so here the X gene, always X here, because both the things are X. So mother always contributes X. Mother always contributes X because she has only X which determine the sex. But father has two, X and Y. He can either give X or Y. So the sperm cell which fertilizes the egg, if it is having Y, then it will be a boy. The sperm cell, if it is having X, the egg also X, XX girl. The sperm is having Y, egg is X always. So YX boy. In this way, the sex determination takes place in human beings. So here we have seen the variations, how the variations they inherit from one generation to another generation. The second part is that evolution. So we learned about heredity. Now let us see the evolution. Both are linked together. So evolution means formation of a new species, which is a very gradual process. But how the new species is evolved from the pre-existing species? A new species comes from the pre-existing one by accumulation of so many variations. And not only that, there are some other factors which also leads to the formation of new species. So let us see what are those factors. Basically, the basic idea of evolution is explained with an illustration here, that is taking an example of some beetles and their colors. Let us see that what is that illustration. Here there are some set of beetles. In a jungle, in a forest, there are some red color beetles. So these are all red color beetles. They are in the forest, that is, they are in the leaves, they are feeding on the leaves of the bushes. So as they are red in color, the bushes are green in color, which are quite contrast. They are easily identified by the crow, which eat the beetles. Crows can easily identify the red color beetles because they are contrast and opposite color to the leaves. So by that, the crows, they pick and eat the red color beetles. Suddenly what happened is that in the red color beetle population, one variation has occurred. One of the beetle, it has got green color. That is a variation. And this variation, this change, it is happened through the genes. So by that it can pass this variation to its progeny. The green color can be passed to the next generations. So this is a variation. Now what happened? Because of this green color, as the green color blends with the leaves of which are in green color, so the green beetle is not being eaten by the crows. Crow cannot identify the green beetle because the leaves are green. Camouflage takes place. That means blending of its color with its surroundings. So only the red beetles are identified. Green beetles are not identified by the crows. So the green beetle population is increasing because crows are not being eaten. Crows are not eating the beetles. So beetles are not being eaten by the crows. Why the green beetles are not being eaten by the crows? Because the green beetles are not identified as they are in green in color. So crows are identifying red. So gradually the population of red beetles is decreased and green beetles increased. You can see that here the green color is an advantageous variation for the beetle population. So by the generations on, you can see the green beetle population is more, red beetle population is less. So the variation, the green color, it fetched the organism. So this is the situation 1. Now let us see the another situation. Now let us see the second situation. Here again the same background, that is the forest. There are a group of beetles which are red in color. They are being eaten by the crows. Red is a contrast color, so by that the crows can easily pick up the beetles. So suddenly there is a variation. There a beetle developed a blue color. In the first situation we have seen a green color. Here the variation is blue color. So the blue color beetles, that is a variation which it can pass to the progeny. The blue color beetle is also producing blue color beetles. But the crows, they can identify the blue color better than the red color. So the red beetle population is more. The crows are identifying blue color, so the blue population is less. So here the variation is not advantageous in this case, in the second situation. Now suddenly what happened? An elephant stepped on these beetles. This is the elephant foot. So the elephant stepped and all the beetles died except a few which are only blue. Only a few blue beetles, they survived. Rest of the beetles died. So only these 4 blue beetles. So what happens? The blue beetles, they continue their progeny. After generations and generations, mostly the new generations will be blue. So it became a very important character of the beetle, that is blue color. Actually it started as a very rare variation. Here rare, all are red, only one is blue, rare variation. But here the total group is blue, the whole generations are blue. Means a single rare variation can become a common characteristic of an organism. That we can understand from this situation. Now let us see the differences between the two situations. In the first situation, whatever the variation has occurred in this beetle population, that variation, it is an advantageous variation, advantage for the green beetle population to grow. You can say it is an adaptation. Blending with surroundings to survive is an adaptation. It led to the survival of the green beetle population. You call it as natural selection. Natural selection. So the variations that are helpful for the survival of the organism, that is called as natural selection. So this is one way how the evolution takes place. That means how the variations that bring out differences here in the populations. In the second situation, here the variation is not advantageous. It is not helpful for the survival of the beetle. The blue color is not at all helpful for the survival of the beetle. But even then the blue color beetles are evolved. That means even though the variations are not helpful, even though the variations are not adaptations, not helpful for adaptation, even then in some cases the variations are passed. That means even though they are not helpful, it doesn't mean that only the helpful variations they pass. So evolution takes place with adaptation, without adaptation also, that we can observe it here. So this is the basic idea of genetic drift. In this case it is accidental. Here the elephant, it stamped on the beetles, that's why the blue beetle survived. The population of the beetle is very small, that's why when the elephant stamps it, all the other color beetles died and blue beetles existed. Accidental. So such kind of accidents, when the populations are small, it may bring the evolution with the variations which are not helpful also. So here the variation is useful variation, here the evolution process goes on. Here without any useful variation, without any adaptations also, we can observe that evolution. So we see from this example we take one more situation. So whatever the red color beetles are there, these beetles are growing on the bushes. Suddenly the bush has got some disease. So because of the disease, the leaves are becoming very small. The leaves are eaten by some other insect. Or the bush has got some infection so that there is no food in the leaves. So beetles, they grow in their size, number of beetles are more, bushes are less, food is less. So the beetles, they reduce in their size. The beetle size is reduced. Small. Can you consider this as a variation? Due to the insufficiency of the food, the organism reduces in its size. Do you think it is a variation? So can this variation, we cannot say it is a variation because it is not variation, but will this change reflects in the next generations? No. So it will not happen, because if the leaves grow properly after the certain time, after the disease period of the plant is completed, again the leaves are growing well, then the beetles eat on that and they grow in size. So the change, the variation means it should be, the change should happen in the genetic material of the organism, in the germ cells of the organism. Unless until the DNA is not changed, the genes are not changed, the change is not reflected in the next generations. This was tested. So inheritance means there must be change in the genetic material. The genes must be changed regarding that character, then only it is possible. Otherwise it is not possible. So to test that, several scientists conducted experiments. See, they have taken a mice, they cut the tail of the mice. So the next generation mice, it is born with tail even though the tail is cut. So likewise, so many generations, they cut the tail of the mice. But even then, generation after generation, the new generations, they are born with tails. Why? Why it is like that? Because cutting of tail is a physical one. It does not make any change in the genes of the rat. It is not a variation. Even though 100 times in 100 generations you get the tail of the mother, or you will not get the tailless mice. All the mice are born with tail. Means physically, if a person accidentally loses a hand or leg in an accident, it doesn't mean that his children will be born without hand or leg. It is not inherited. The inheritance happens only if there is any change in the genetic material, only if the changes or variations, that means changes in the genes, that is only reflected in the progenies, coming up generations. So in the previous example, we have seen how different organisms are evolving. We have seen the microevolution with the example of the beetles. There we have seen red color, blue color, green color beetles. But here, there are different kinds of beetles have come in different colors, but all are of same species. That means the red color beetle can reproduce with green, green can reproduce, can mate with blue, they can take part in reproduction. So you cannot say it as a different species, same species, some variations, that is microevolution. But how a new species is formed? Let us see. Here there is a population called X. X type of beetles are there here in a particular specific location. They are isolated. They are in the forest, in the bushes, growing up. Suddenly one crow, it picked up a beetle X. It has taken it to a long distance which actually the beetles cannot travel. And it dropped the beetle here without eating it. It left the X here. Here there is a beetle population which is named as X1. Now this X, if just think that if this X is able to reproduce, able to mate with X1, this X, and in the new location X1, they produce a beetle. So this beetle, it is isolated. New genes are introduced into this X1 group. So it leads to the variations, and this beetle is having a the genetic flow has got some new genes here. So here it will develop its population. After number of generations, after so many variations, here in the earlier stage when it was taken there was a possibility of reproduction between these two. But after number of generations, so many variations happens. So the variations that takes place in X1 group is different. The variations that takes place in X group is different. So after so many generations, this beetle cannot reproduce with this beetle. This beetle cannot mate with the other beetle X1. So if the reproduction is not possible between two different organisms, you consider them as separate species. That is what happens. So you can think that, you can say that new species is formed here. This is called speciation. Say for example, there are two groups of beetles. Here one group, here one group, two groups. These two groups are separated by a big stream or river. So there is no possibility of this beetles to going here, this beetles going here. Actually earlier all the beetles were same group, but suddenly one river came. Because of flood or something, there some river came. It divided the group, the same group. This is X, same group, divided into two by the river. So they became two groups. After they are divided, made into two groups, after they are isolated, in the initial stages, this can mate with this one, it can reproduce. But after so many generations, this will get different set of variations. This will get different set of variations because they are isolated, separate. And after number of generations, this becomes a particular species, this becomes a particular species. So the variations get accumulated. Here different variations are accumulated, here different variations are accumulated. So this is different, that is different. So the sperm cell of this cannot fuse with the egg cell of that organism. If such state is identified, you can consider this is separate species, this is separate species. If the male cell of this can fuse with female cell, you cannot say different species. After so many generations, here this population, whatever the population is formed here, this forms an entirely different species compared to the other. So there is no reproduction, fusion of male and female gamete takes place between two different species. In this way, every time a new species is evolved. So this is the way how these various species are evolved on this planet. This is the way how the diversity has come. That is explained and observed by Charles Darwin. So the variations, about the variations, we got the information by the observations of Gregor John Mendel and the process of evolution, that is explained by Charles Darwin. So he has made certain observations. So there are some proofs for evolution that we will see in that next part of the lesson. So now let us see that the link between the evolution and classification. So we studied how the traits are inherited and how the variations that help for the formation of a species, speciation. So we understood the various situations and conditions which lead to formation of a new species. So sometimes it happens because of the natural selection. That means the variations that are helpful for the organism to adapt according to the change in the environment. So it leads to the survival of the organisms. And sometimes accidentally, certain organisms may be isolated or which may join with some other group and continue their progeny there. So after a long period, if it is brought back to its original group, it may not be able to reproduce with the original members. It shows that the variations accumulated a lot and it has got difference. So by that it cannot reproduce with the previous group, so you can consider it as a new species. So those points we discussed here. Now let us see, to understand the process of evolution, how do we understand? Yes, okay, we are thinking that this much of variety has come from, that means this much of diversity of living organisms have come from the same group of ancestors. So in fact, we all might have, all this diversity might have come from the single ancestor. But here we understood the conditions. From generation to generation, because of so many reasons, the organisms get divided, get isolated and get accumulated with so many variations, some helpful variations, some useful, some useless. So likewise species are developed. So to study that evolution, here what helps us? To study the evolution better, we need to look at the classification of the organisms. That means the grouping of organisms. So the grouping helps us to understand better. So individually, if you study each and every organism, you cannot understand anything about the organism. You have to study about each and every organism, how is its digestion, how are its systems. So what are the tissues, how it is doing this activity, this life process carried likewise. It is not possible to study each and every organism living on this planet. So organisms are studied under one groups. They are studied under groups. How they are grouped? That grouping is called as classification. So organisms are grouped according to so many characteristics they show, features they show. The organisms that have similar characters are grouped into one group. This grouping or classification also helps us to understand the process of evolution. So you can understand the process of evolution if you study the members of one group and if you study the members of two different groups which are similar. There are two groups, but they have some similarities. Their differences are less. That means close groups. By studying these close groups, you can understand. So here the classification helps, but how the organisms are classified? I told you based upon the characteristics. So many characteristics, on basing various features, the organisms are classified or grouped. So let us see. Primarily, the organisms are classified depending upon their cell structure. We know that all living organisms are made up of cells. Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. So the cell structure is different between certain organisms. Some organisms, they do not have a nucleus, enucleated organisms, prokaryotes. Some organisms, they have a well-developed nucleus in which the genetic material is present. Whereas the other group, genetic material is present but it is not in the nucleus. The cell does not contain any nucleus, the genetic material is present in the cytoplasm. So there is a division. The organisms that do not possess a nucleus in their cells, the organisms that have a distinct nucleus, prokaryotes, eukaryotes. Again, there is a categorization or classification based on number of cells, unicellular, multicellular, only one cell throughout the life, many cells. And again, one more characteristic, food related, photosynthesis. Even though they are multicellular, all organisms are not capable of producing their own food. Organisms, especially plants, especially green plants, are able to prepare their own food by a process known as photosynthesis, in which they use carbon dioxide and water to produce glucose. All organisms are not capable of doing the photosynthesis. Animals, they cannot carry out photosynthesis. Plants, and even the plants that have green color leaves or green color pods, are able to produce the food by photosynthesis. So on basing this characteristic, whether the organism is able to carry out photosynthesis or not, based on this also the categorization is done, the classification is done. And on the other hand, if you come to the animals, the complexity of the body, even though they are multicellular, the complexity of the body, again they are classified. So there we can find, basically they are divided based upon the structures of their skeletons. Organisms that have a skeleton, again with skeleton, without skeleton, and the organisms that are having skeleton outside the body, exoskeleton, exoskeleton, example cockroach, prawns, all insects. Endoskeleton, endo in the sense inside. What inside? Inside the body. We have an endoskeleton, humans have endoskeleton. Our skeleton, our bones are under the muscles. So we don't have any shell outside the body like a cockroach. So insects, they have hard skeleton outside their body. You call it as exoskeleton. But animals like dogs, cat, humans, all mammals, you see that they have endoskeleton. So on basing this also you can divide, the categorize. So on basing all these characters, the grouping of organisms is done. So once you study the grouping of organisms, you can understand the relation, similarities between different groups. So by that you can understand they are closely related. You see that there are two groups. Say for example, I will take mammals and we take birds, mammals and birds. So here you can find some similarities, but there are differences. But these two are entirely different from insects. See, here three groups I have written. Mammals, that means that have skin on their bodies, that produce young ones directly by giving birth. Dog, cat, humans, all these are mammals. Birds, you know, pigeon, parrot, crow, all these are birds. Insects, you know. If we talk about these three groups, you find more similarities between these two compared to this. Compared to that, You have skeleton inside your body, endoskeleton in mammals. Even in birds, endoskeleton is there. Blood is red in color in mammals. Blood is red in color in birds. So likewise, you have some similarities. 4 limbs. You have 2 hands, 2 legs. And birds, they have 2 wings, 2 legs, 4 limbs are there. So you are finding similarities. Of course, they are different groups because of so many differences. But birds are somewhat closely related to mammals compared to insects. And if you compare with some other group like some plants, you are comparing with some plants. Can you compare these mammals and plants? Lot of variations. So some groups are very closely related, some groups are not so closely related. They have so many differences. But this grouping helps. It helps to understand the hierarchy. We can go backwards. Means starting with the groups that have close relations. Then you will find that by this you can understand, okay, mammals and birds, they have so many similarities, they are close. It shows that both these things have a common ancestor. Both these things have come from a common ancestor. So you have gone to their common ancestor and there you studied the relation. So finally you will go to a point at which everything has evolved from a common ancestor. So from where this common ancestor has come onto this planet. So there arises a question how the life began on this planet. No one knows how life began on this planet. It's all history. So there are certain predictions and there are certain experiments conducted to show that life might have started on this planet, that is in the ocean, because of some atmospheric changes. Some unnatural climatic conditions led to formation of some molecules in the water, which led to the formation of molecules like proteins, DNA. So all these together they formed a single cell, some living constituent, which later evolved into this much of diversity it gives. So we have to believe that. So as we are going through this process of evolution, we are looking into this process of evolution. So we understand that, so the evolution, this much of diversity, all these species have come from the common ancestors. But it is a very gradual and slow process which takes thousands and thousands and thousands of years, millions of years it takes. So now tracing evolutionary relationships. The evolutionary relationship between different species can be traced out by many methods. One is by observing the internal structure of organs of organisms. That will give some sync, some relation. The other thing is observing the remnants of dead organisms or extinct organisms, that is by fossils. The other method is by carbon dating. By observing the fossils using carbon dating technology, we can find out. We get some proofs for this evolution. And recently, due to the advancement in biotechnology, now we can analyze the DNA, whether it is a live organism or dead organism. Its DNA can be analyzed to find out what are the various genes and to which species it belongs to. So in this way, by all these techniques, we get some proofs for this process of evolution. So among these, the first one we see here, organs, the arrangement, the structure of organs. It gives a notion, idea about the evolution of species. Here we see that homologous organs, we know that we have 4 limbs, 2 hands, 2 legs. Here we take this example, frog, lizard, bird, human. So all these 4 animals has got 4 limbs, but they use them in a different way. Frog uses its limbs in a different way compared to human. Lizard uses its limbs in a different way compared to that bird. Bird uses its limbs in a different way compared to human. Bird uses to fly with its 4 limbs. Human, he cannot fly with the 4 limbs. He pick the things, he hold the objects, he pick the fruits and flowers. So he does so many things with the hands. So here the organs are used for different purpose, but internally if you see the number of bones and the arrangement of bones in the hand of frog, lizard, bird, human being, they all have similar kind of arrangement of bones, similar structure of bones in the hand, which are called as homologous organs. So this is called as the homologous characteristic. So on basing, this gives an idea that these all have evolved from a common ancestor. That means it doesn't mean that in all the cases the organisms that have similarity, homologous nature in the structure of their organs are need not necessarily evolved from common ancestor, but this gives an idea. In most cases we can find this idea that the homologous nature, that means the homologous organs, the presence of homologous organs indicates that these have evolved from a common ancestor. In some cases you see that analogous organs, that means function is same but the structure is different. If you see the wing of a bat and a bird, the function is same. Bird uses to fly, bat also uses its wing to fly, but internally their structures are different. Bird, it has got its wing mostly because of the feathers, but bat, if you see the bat, it will be having the skin. The wing of the bat is made up of skin between its digits. So between the finger folds there is a skin of the bat, so this makes the wing of the bat, but functionally they are similar. But if you see the internal structure, it is different. But outside if you see, they may appear more similar compared to this. You may feel that bat and bird are much closely related, because you may think that this is having wing, that is having wings. Both are having wings. So bat and bird are closely related. So it is not that. So such organs, the organs that have the similar function in different organisms but have different structure are called as analogous organs. The organs that have similar structure but different function, those are called as homologous organs. So in the tracing evolutionary relationships, we will move on to the next one, that is the fossil. What are fossils? Fossils are the dead remains of the organisms that lived a few centuries ago, so that are not existing now. We know that many animals and plants became extinct, means they are not existing in the present era. Long ago they lived and they died. So the remains of this dead animal or any of its remains or body parts, sometimes they get preserved in the earth. We call them as fossils. So by studying the fossils, we get more relationship between these species. We get more and more information about the process of evolution. So the next one is fossils. By studying the fossils, we can understand the evolutionary relationships. So what are fossils? The dead remains of plants and animals that are buried under the ground. Generally, when an organism is died and buried under the ground, it will be decomposed by the bacteria. So nothing remains in the mud, everything mixes up with the soil. But in certain cases, in certain circumstances, certain remains of the organisms or maybe the complete organism are preserved under the earth in some different situations for a very long period. So these things are obtained when we dig, when the excavation is done. So there, by studying that fossil, you can understand the evolutionary relationship. But how do they estimate how old the fossil is? How do they estimate what is the age of the fossil that they found? So they find different kind of things, the bones of animals, sometimes the trunk of trees, the leaves are also trapped in the rock. When the lava is molten, something is trapped in the air spaces of the lava and it is trapped. And some insect or some fish, it might got caught in the hot mud so which is packed. So by that the body of the organism is not destroyed and the mud becomes hardened and it stays there for thousands and thousands of years. When somebody digs there, historians, they dig in the earth, excavations they do, archaeologists, they find out the traces of history, the proofs for the history, even for evolution. So they may find such kind of fossils. So by studying this fossil, they can understand the relationship. But how do they study here? How do they estimate the age of the fossil? By two methods. One is a relative method. Relative method means the layers of the earth, at which layer it is found. So we may found the bones of the dinosaur and the bottom layer because millions of years ago they became extinct, and they may find the bones of some other bird like dodo in the recent, because it got recently extinct. So the recently extinct animal remains are found in the top layers because the earth is covered layer by layer. From time to time layers are formed. So the fossils are found so deep, those are so old. The fossils that are found in the top, those are recent. So this is the relative method. The other one is finding the ratios of isotopes of the minerals found in the fossil. This is called as carbon dating technique. So by finding the isotopes, the ratios of isotopes of the minerals found in the fossil. So whatever the fossil they collect, from that fossil they take the sample, they find the ratios of the isotopes of the mineral in the fossil. So by that they can estimate the age of the fossil. So fossils also give the proof about the evolution. So most of the things about the dinosaurs, we came to know about the dinosaurs because of these fossils. The fossils of various kinds of dinosaurs, they were found in the soil, in the ground. So by studying that we got the more information, when they existed, how they existed, what were their food habits, and what members of the dinosaurs were vegetarians and what were carnivorous, dangerous, and all these things we had come to know about that. Say for example, if you find the teeth of a particular dinosaur, by looking at the teeth, the sharp teeth tells that it is a carnivore. The teeth might be having some kind of flesh or bone of another animal is attached. By testing that, yes, you can understand this one was eating some other animal, so this is a carnivore. So likewise, by studying the fossils, we get the information about the species that is not existed today. So the extinct species information can be studied by the studying of fossils. So here we understood how the evolution takes place and how to study the evolution. Now let us see the evolution. It takes place in stages. It is not a single step process. The drastic changes are not seen in just single generation. See, how can complex changes takes place with a single variation? For example, there is a species called X. There is a species called Y. So this species is evolved into X, evolved into Y. In X, there are no eyes. Eyes are not there. But in Y, eyes are there. This feature is found. But eye is a very complex organ. How can it can form with a single change in the DNA of this X? So the DNA of X is variated. Some variation happened in the DNA of X. But how can one single change in the gene, how can it bring such a big change in its body? No eyes, eye. Eye is not a small factor. Very big complex organ. So do you think that such kind of drastic changes will come in a very single step, in a very single generation with a single change in the gene? No. It happens so gradually. So the development of organs or systems, they have evolved gradually. We can understand this. You can see the number of, you can see that different species. You see the fishes, you see the reptiles, birds, mammals. All these four have heart to pump the blood. Fish is having heart, reptiles are having heart, birds are having heart, humans are having heart. But what is the difference? The fish is having a heart made up of 2 chambers. Reptiles, they have 3 chambers. Amphibians, they have 3 chambers. Frog is having 3 chambered heart. Reptiles, they have 3 chambered, partly 4. So the birds are having partly 4 chamber. Humans, you can see that completely 4 chambered heart. So heart is there, but in evolution, the change is gradual or step by step. The evolution takes place in stages. In stages. And one more important thing to be noticed here, there are some variations in the organisms that are used for one purpose in the beginning. Later, they might be used for some other purpose. The feathers in the birds, initially they might be used to insulate their body from the cold weather. Feathers give protection from cold weather. They insulate the bodies. They prevent the escape of temperature from the bodies to the environment. So they provide this kind of insulation. But later when the bird grows up, it may use the feathers as wings to fly. So later it is used for flight. So change is useful for one property becomes useful for another way. That is the example there. So far we are discussing about the evolution of the organisms that became extinct, not existed now. But in the present scenario, have we seen the formation of any different species? That is by bringing changes? Yes. So let us see the evolution of cabbage by artificial selection. So the evolution is a natural process which happens by natural selection and genetic drift. But here there are certain conditions that can be arranged by the farmers to go for artificial selection, selecting a particular character and propagating to the coming up progeny generations. So by that they can go for development of a variety which we can practically see in the wild cabbage. So the wild cabbage is grown. Some farmers, they wanted to have the leaves with very short gaps like a ball. So it led to the formation of a cabbage. So the cabbage is nothing but the leaves which are very close to other. The stem is very much reduced. The leaves are very close to one another and it is a very dwarf plant. The internodal space is very less in cabbage. Leaves are arranged one after the other, covering each other to form a ball called cabbage. And in some cases, some farmers wanted to have some swollen parts like kohlrabi, swollen parts. In other cases, they wanted to develop with the sterile flowers, that is cauliflower. And they wanted to develop with arrested flowers, that is broccoli. Broccoli you can see in purple color or in green in color, appears like a cauliflower. Broccoli is available, cauliflower is available, kohlrabi is available, kale. Here they wanted to grow large leaves, long leaves, that is kale. The kale is different from cabbage, both are similar, but here the arrangement and shape of the leaves is different. Kale is different, cabbage is different. And red cabbage, of course it appears in purple or red color. So that is a red cabbage. In this way, wild cabbage is propagated into different forms by artificial selection. Natural selection happens naturally. Artificial selection is done by the farmers. So this much of variety of these cabbages have come into existence, which we can see in the practical scenario. So here the other method of tracing the evolutionary relationship is DNA analysis. By analyzing the DNA of different species, we can understand the evolutionary relationships. So let us see some more important points about the evolution, the assumptions about the ideas about the evolution. Let us check what we are thinking about evolution are true or not. Evolution is not equated with progress. It is not progress. Evolution doesn't mean that the extinct of one organism leads to the development of new species. One common ancestor, that is from one common ancestor, two different group organisms may evolve. So that is the one thing, and this is not progress. It is not a linear growth. This is not a growth like a chain. It is like a tree. It is expanding. The only one point we see it here, during the process of evolution, more complicated complex organisms are evolved. You see the humans, more complex organisms are evolved. It doesn't mean that only the complex organisms will be able to survive. It is not that, because the organisms that are existing from a very long time, that is in the form of a small bacteria that have a very simple structure, are still existing now. It doesn't mean that evolution makes the organism so complex. It makes the organisms only that can survive in the changed environment. So it is not that. But anyway, here we see the only progress, that is that complex organisms are evolved in the process of evolution. And it is a very gradual process. And you see that the relations, we may be thinking that, okay, humans are evolved from chimpanzees. It's not a fact that humans are not evolved from chimpanzees. Humans and chimpanzees evolved from a common ancestor. Human, chimpanzee. These two are evolved from a common ancestor. So, by number of generations, the changes have come. It doesn't mean that the chimpanzees, from the chimpanzees, we are not evolved. So, from a common ancestor, two different species may evolve. They will be closely related. Say for example, here A is there. From A, B and C have come. From B, D, E have come. From C, F, G have come. So this is the way they are evolved. Now let us say A is the ancestor, common ancestor. If you see the similarities, B and C are much more closely related. They have more similarities. And if you see D and G, they have very less similarities. You will find more similarities between you and your own brother or sister when compared to your cousin. Who is your cousin? Your cousin is related to your father. Your father may be having brother. So your grandfather has got two children. Say for example, this is your grandfather and this is your father and this is your uncle, that is brother of your father, and this is you, D is you and your brother, and here your cousin 1, cousin 2. So cousin 1, cousin 2 will have more similarities compared to your brother or you. You and your brother will have more similarities compared to that cousin. So in this way, in this hierarchy, you will be having more similarities which are very close, and you will be having more similarities with the other species which you have come from a common ancestor. In this case, humans and chimpanzees have come from a common ancestor. That is the reason why you find more similarities. So now let us look at the human evolution, how the human evolution took place. For thousands of years, there is no evolution in the Homo sapiens species. The same Homo sapiens species is continued in all the various continents. Of course, if we see the ancestor of all the humans, it is the same ancestor, and we all have come from our homeland, that is the Africa. But now if you see the people of different country, you find different races: Americans, whites and blacks, Negroes, Chinese, Japanese, Indians. So all these have different skin color, different features, but the DNA, it remains same, and all these different races, they can reproduce one with the other. Interracial reproduction is possible. So it shows that we are all same species again. But we all started as a common ancestor, that is the Homo sapiens is found in Africa. So from the Africa, some people, they spread in the Africa and some migrated to West Asia, from there to Central Asia, there to Eurasia, to South Asia, and to East Asia, and from there to Indonesia, Philippines, Australia, and there to America. In this way, the spread of the population, human population has taken place. So this was happened in groups because people were nomadic. Humans were nomadic, just moving in groups. Sometimes they may move forward, sometimes they may move backward. It is a haphazard movement. So in this haphazard movement, they have spread all over the planet. Now we are able to meet the people of various continents. But even then, still the genetic material, of course there are some differences in the genetic sequences of all these various races, but still they are able to reproduce with the other races. So every organism in this planet, we see it's the evolution is a continuous process, and whatever the organisms are existing now, they are making their life, they are living their life in a better way with all the variations that they have acquired. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.